are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. De facto law minister gives assurance for parliamentary reforms, and workers who refuse vaccination may face action. That's coming up. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz proposed to raise the statutory debt limit to 65% of GDP from the current 60%. Although the debt to GDP ratio is now at about 58%, he said the figure would likely increase to above 60% by year end, given the commitment by the government to support the people and businesses. He will present the proposal to the cabinet next week before bringing it to Parliament.
Today, still have room below 60%. As I mentioned just now, 58% of the statutory debt limit. And even if we breach it, it will be just a marginal breach, but again, it's a breach. So therefore, we have to go to Parliament.
Zafrul also ruled out bringing back the Goods and Services Tax GST in Budget 2022, as the government is focused on reviving the economy. He said the government is looking at ways to enhance its revenue and to address the issue of revenue leakages. De facto Law Minister Datuk Sri Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar pledged for several parliamentary reforms. Among them is to make the Dewan Rakyat an independent institution. This is following a discussion with Dewan Negara President Tan Sri Dr. Rais Yatim and Parliament Speaker Dato' Azhar Azizan Harun yesterday. He said both welcome the proposal and are ready to lead the transformation of Parliament. He said three main issues were discussed. The first was to revive the Parliamentary Service Act. The PSA was repealed by former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad in 1992. Restoring it would give Parliament more independence with the ability to manage itself administratively and financially instead of being under the purview of the executive as it is now. The second proposal is to create a new Act of Parliament to replace the Houses of Parliament Privilege and Powers Act 1952. He said the existing act is outdated and no longer suitable for the political landscape in the 21st century. Wan Junaidi said there was also a discussion to further amend the standing orders and rules for both Houses of Parliament. He said many of the rules may no longer be suitable in today's environment, and amendments were needed to both modernize Parliament and empower it. Wan Junaidi said he will be submitting a report on his proposals to the cabinet for endorsement. The High Court in Kuching, Sarawak today ordered the Election Commission to implement Undi 18 by the end of 2021. Its Judicial Commissioner, Alexander Siu Hawai, said the EC's decision to delay lowering the voting age to 18 to September 2022 was irrational and illegal. He granted two court orders, first to reject the EC and the government's decision to delay lowering the minimum voting age in Malaysia from the initial 21 to 18 to September 2022. Second is a mandamus order compelling the government and EC to take all necessary steps for the constitutional amendment involving Undi 18 to come into operation by December 31st, 2021. Today was the delivery of the High Court's decision for 5 Malaysian youths' lawsuit or judicial review application to seek the immediate enforcement of a 2019 constitutional amendment. They are a part of the Undi 18 movement that successfully advocated for the lower voting age and includes 4 Sarawak-born youths: Ivan Alexander Ong, Vivian Desi George, Tiffany Wee Ki Ying, Chang Sui Earn and Sharifah Mahira Said Haizir. The right to vote is directly affected as they are aged between 18 to 20. They had filed the lawsuit on May 4th and had obtained leave for judicial review on May 28, which led to the hearings on July 27th and August 13th before the decision is announced today. Separately, 18 Malaysian youths had also on April 2nd filed a similar lawsuit in the High Court in Kuala Lumpur and had on June 17 won for judicial review. The court is scheduled to deliver its decision on the youth judicial review on October 21st. The Health and Education Ministries are looking into whether COVID-19 immunization can be made compulsory for teachers. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said he will have to discuss with Education Minister Datuk Dr. Radzi Jidin on the matter, as there is also legal implications. Meanwhile, Radzi said that teachers who reject vaccinations won't be allowed to interact with students face-to-face.
Khairi had stressed earlier that the government still maintains voluntary vaccination policy and will continue with its approach to encourage people into getting vaccinated. While he encouraged for companies to set vaccination as a condition before entry to the workplace, his ministry would leave the decision to the sector or individual companies whether they want to implement a vaccination mandate or not. Meanwhile, Khairi said that the SOPs for interstate travel is currently being finalized. He urged the public to be patient as there are many states that are still behind in their vaccination program. He hinted that interstate travel could be allowed after all states have completed vaccinating at least 60% of their adult population. So far, only the Klang Valley, Labuan, Sarawak, Negeri Sembilan, Perlis and Malacca have achieved said goal.
Workers who refuse to get their COVID-19 vaccine jabs can face action under the Occupational Safety and Health OSH Act 1994 for causing unsafe environment at the workplace. Human Resources Minister Datuk Sri M. Saravanan said although there was no legal provision making vaccinations mandatory, the OSH requires employers to ensure safety and health of themselves and others at the workplace.
According to him, the public can argue that there is no new act, but the act related to safety at the workplace can still be enforced. He added that although no action can be taken on someone who is not vaccinated, there are provisions that allow action to be taken if the environment is considered to be unsafe. Saravanan also said that the ministry would also check existing factories to ensure good ventilation under the same act.
We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
Selangor Darul Ehsan, the country's leading GDP contributor, with a workforce of over 3.6 million, is primed to become ASEAN's gateway for business. How is Invest Selangor playing its role in contributing to this? From industrial parks to aerospace, we will touch on digitalization and e-commerce, and how companies...
Welcome back. Japan's Yoshihide Suga will step down as Prime Minister just after a year in office, marred by dwindling public support due to his administration's unpopular handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. He said today that he will not run for re-election as party leader later this month, paving the way for a new leader for the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP.
Suga said he would step down in order to focus on the health crisis until his successor is appointed.
私自身、出馬を予定する中で、このコロナ対策と選挙活動、こうしたことを考えたときに、実際、莫大なエネルギーがこれ必要でありました。そういう中で、やはり、両立はできない、どちらかに選択すべきである、国民の皆さんにお約束を何回ともしています。新型コロナウイルス、この感染拡大を防止するために、私は専念をしたい、そういう判断をいたしました。
Suga's support rates sank below 30% ahead of the ruling LDP elections due on September 29. The winner will lead the party in a general election and is expected to take over as Japan's premier. The country, still under state of emergency, is now grappling with its worst COVID wave, with more than 1.5 million cases and a slow vaccination rollout. The decision to host the Olympics Games this year, despite the worsening pandemic, also proved to be hugely unpopular, which caused Suga's support ratings to drop.
Bangkok braces for more demonstrations as anti-government activists press for Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's resignation. The capital city staged one of this year's biggest rallies in central Bangkok yesterday. More demonstrations are expected to take place ahead of a confidence vote in Parliament tomorrow. Prayut, meanwhile, responded today that he will neither resign nor call for a snap election. A confidence vote is expected to go Prayut's way because of his coalition's clear majority. However, protesters vowed to continue demonstrating until he resigns, despite warnings that protests were banned due to COVID restrictions. Prayut is facing his third no-confidence debate since he came to power in 2019. His government has been blamed for poor handling of the pandemic, particularly failure to secure timely and adequate supplies of vaccines. Just 13% of Thailand's population of more than 66 million has been fully vaccinated. In New Zealand, a man was shot dead by police after he stabbed 6 people in a supermarket in Auckland. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern described the incident as a terrorist attack. She said the man was a Sri Lankan national who was inspired by the Islamic State ideology. Ardern said the suspect, who arrived in New Zealand in 2011, was well known to security agencies and was being monitored around the clock, but he was not allowed to be kept in prison by law.
What happened today was despicable. It was hateful. It was wrong. It was carried out by an individual, not a faith, not a culture, not an ethnicity, but an individual person who was gripped by ideology that is not supported here by anyone or any community.
3 of those injured were reported to be in critical condition. The attack happened at about 2:40 p.m. Ardern said that because the man was under constant monitoring, a police surveillance team and a special tactics group were able to shoot and kill him within 60 seconds of the attack starting. Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison flags a quicker reopening of the economy following a vaccine swap deal with Britain. The UK will send 4 million Pfizer vaccine doses to Australia that will double the quantity of vaccines available. The country has a steady supply of locally produced AstraZeneca vaccine, but residents have been hesitant to take it. Only about 40% of Australian adults are fully vaccinated, well behind most rich nations. As part of the swap deal, Morrison said Australia will transfer 4 million Pfizer vaccine doses to the UK in December. Some states are warning a delay to reopen due to the escalating Delta outbreaks in Sydney and Melbourne. They say their vaccination programs are being hindered by a lack of supply of the Pfizer vaccine needed to inoculate the younger population. Australia has also recently struck deals with Singapore and Poland to increase supplies of Pfizer vaccines. At least 45 people were killed after Tropical Storm Ida brought heavy rainfall and flash floods across 4 northeastern states in America. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said at least 23 people had died in his state, most of them stuck in their vehicles as waters rose. Another 14 people lost their lives in New York City, including a 2-year-old boy. Many of them drowned while trapped in their flooded basements. President Joe Biden has declared an emergency in both New Jersey and New York, enabling both states to receive federal funding to support local disaster relief efforts.
This isn't about politics. Hurricane Ida didn't care if you were a Democrat or one. No one fled this storm.
On Consider This Tonight, we ask UMNO Information Chief Shahril Hamdan if we will see a changed UMNO now that it's leading the government again. That's coming up right after AWANI Tonight. That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from Astro, awani.com, and Astro Awani app. I'm Saraya Mia. We'll see you again.